Next item, 101 Lake Drive. One second. Request for a use permit to allow an addition which increases the gross floor area by greater than 50%, would exceed 2,800 square feet of living area, with a two-car garage per sections 12-230B1, 12-280A3 of the San Bruno Zoning Ordinance. Lisa, staff report.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. The item before you is a request for a first and second story addition at 101 Lake. The total floor area of the added area would be 1,443 square feet, and that would be adding to the existing residence of just a little over 2,200 square feet, bringing the total new with the addition to 3,730 square feet. As noted in your staff report, this item was reviewed at three different architecture review committee meetings. At the first meeting, staff had expressed concern with the mass of the addition as well as the view impact to the adjacent neighbor at 103 Lake Drive. The architecture review committee then conducted a site inspection to better view the property, and the applicant was able to erect a story pole to represent where the addition would end and where the ridge line would be. So we were able to go out there and take a view from the adjacent neighbor as well as from the subject site. At that meeting, the Architecture Review Committee requested the applicant make some reduction in area, pull back the addition to preserve a larger view corridor, and they also gave some direction to the applicant. At that time, he had a three-car garage because of the size of the addition, and the Architecture Review Committee suggested that in order to maintain the living space that the applicant had desired in the addition, to pull some of that living space down from the second story and to incorporate that with the first floor addition to try to maintain, as I indicated earlier, that larger view corridor with the second story. So the committee was supportive of sticking with a two-car garage. The applicant did make the modifications as requested, reduce the overall square footage of the addition by, I believe, 200 square feet, and also pull back the second story addition. This was presented at the last Architecture Review Committee meeting, and we did have the adjacent neighbors still express some concern, and it's mostly due to what's labeled as that storage area behind the garage. When you look at it from that adjacent neighbor, there is still that roof line coming up, and the second story, because of the slope, is a tall structure. So they are concerned that that would still block some of their view. But I think they were pleased with the other changes that the applicant had made. Staff is also supportive of the request. I think the changes created a larger view corridor. It also helped to break up the addition. When we viewed it from the adjacent neighbor, it felt very large and massive. And I think the articulation that's now been incorporated in the design really does help break up the mass of the addition. This is a very large lot, as you know, but it does have a very large easement to the rear, so it does limit the ability to add on to this property, somewhat limited by that second story addition. Staff is also supportive of the two-car garage. There is storage within that garage area, as you've seen, and there is driveway space to park as well. Just wanted to note that the applicant will be replacing the wood siding that's there now with entirely stucco for the residence, and then there's just that minor architectural change at the front, but essentially the rest of the addition is to the rear. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the property owner is also here if you have any questions for him.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions of staff? No? Thank you, Lisa. And the applicant, would you please step to the podium and state your name and street for the record, please?
Yeah, good evening. I'm Paul Peoples, and my house is at 101 Lake Drive.
Would you like to give any type of description at all of the proposed plan?
The plan is it's acceptable to us. We're not quite getting what we want, but that's part of the compromise process. And I think it's going to actually look better than our original plans did from our neighbor's point of view. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of the applicant?
Through the chair. I apologize for my voice, but I was up at the property today, and I saw that there's a retaining wall that surrounds the pillars down below. Can you tell me about that wall?
A retaining wall?
Well, it appears to be. I mean, I didn't walk down into it, but I went into the adjacent neighbor to your right, or to the east side.
Oh, to the east side.
And I looked at your porch, underneath there was a retaining wall. Well, it appeared to be. It's a brick wall.
Oh, that is totally on my neighbor's property, and that's my neighbor's wall.
It was underneath your house.
Pardon?
It was underneath your house.
Oh, that. That is a concrete and brick wall that's under my deck.
Yes.
And the previous owner, I think they put it in for a windbreak so they could barbecue down there, because the way the house is now, most of the time you cannot barbecue any place on the property.
Yes, I understand that.
And most of that is going to disappear because the house is, going to move back in that area a little bit.
Okay. Okay.
So the history of it, I really don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And there, from what I saw, I believe there's some plants in the back. Looks like bathtubs. Are those yours or your neighbors?
Oh, those are my neighbors.
Okay.
Everything, yeah, that's all the neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
I wonder about those too.
Is that the bathtub?
Thank you. Yes.
Planter boxes.
3, well, they're not currently being used as planter boxes.
Okay, Mary, any other questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. Any other commissioners have any questions of the applicant? I don't see any, but it looks like, Aaron, would you have a question?
I would just like to compliment the applicant as well as the neighbor on coming together and compromising on this one. This application has taken a little while, but I think the end result is something that, as the applicant said, he could live with, and something that the neighbor can live with as well. So I'd like to compliment the applicant about coming a long way on this one to meet staff's recommendations, as well as some that you take into consideration as neighbor.
I have a question, please.
Okay,
It's really not really about the plans, more for my own knowledge of reading plans. Maybe you can help me out. I'm reading A3 here. And I'm trying to figure out how far away your house is from the neighbor's house, where it kind of staggers out. And it looks like that line there is a 5-foot setback there, but then the neighbor's house, it seems to be like right on that property line. Is the neighbor's house too close to the property line? Aaron, am I reading that right?
That's just very close. Good point.
Yeah, by today's standards, yes, I think they are a little close to the property, too close to the property lines. It's also, those lots around there also have odd shapes.
Right, I know it's on
so
the
I
angle,
think that's
but-
the reason in the original subdivision, the
But
setback.
if this property line is correct on his plans, the neighbor is like 1.5 feet off the property line.
They're very close on the side.
So is there a fence there? Or is there going to be a fence there?
There is a cyclone fence there.
Could somebody walk between their neighbor's house and the fence?
Oh, sure. There's at the corner of my house, I have a gate, and then there's the cyclone fence it's a 5-foot fence that runs down the property line about halfway down towards the reservoir. And then on his side, he has a gate just like mine that he can open and go around the side of his house. And they're only close right at the very corner of the street. And then they both kind of angle away from each other.
Oh, I see that, but at that corner, it looks like
It is close. I mean, we were out there, but
that
you
has
can
really
walk
no
through.
bearing on you. It's your neighbor more than you.
Yeah, I've measured mine. I think it's exactly 5 feet from the corner of my house to the post of the fence.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant?
Through the chair,
Commissioner Peterson.
I'd like to compliment the applicant on using what appears to be extreme geometrical skills to figure out how to get a new structure in between the property line and the easement. And you've certainly gone farther than almost all but 1% of the applications we've seen. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I started out with a surveyor to find out what we really could do before
Right.
pursuing it.
I saw that.
Any other questions of the applicant? Yeah. Okay, well, seeing none, I would just like to take the opportunity again to, commend you. You listened to what your neighbor's concerns were. You listened to staff. You listened to the ARC review. You did a great job. And thank you from my perspective. And
Can we vote on it first? Maybe we're gonna
no, I'm
do-
just
we're gonna
letting
do
her know. I just think you did a great job. Anyway, so now I'm going to open it up to the public. Anybody in the public wishing to speak on this? I see no public, John Q. Public, so I will open and close. I will bring it back to the commission for whatever their pleasure is, Commissioner Marshall.
Through the
You gonna
chair.
make it? Commissioner Peterson, yes.
I'd like to move the commission approve use permit 8-24 based on findings of fact 1 through 6 and conditions of approval 1 through 24.
Okay. we
Second.
Have a motion.
Second.
And we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? It does pass. You have a 10-day appeal period, and what I previously stated still stands. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.